All right, so welcome to the Meteor Club November edition of the question and answer show, I guess. I don't know what I'm calling this. Today we have a special guest with us, Chris Mather. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks. Good to be
Yeah,
here.
awesome. Glad you're here. Lots of people already got some questions lined up. So if you're not familiar, there was a link I just tweeted out to the Crowdcast. You can ask questions there, and people are asking and kind of upvoting, that kind of stuff. And then if you're watching through YouTube or through the Google Plus interface, there's also a Q&A app there that I'll kind of keep my eye on as well. So feel free to ask in either of those spots. So what? Before we really get into it, what have you been? What's been exciting you've been working on, Chris?
Oh,
Still there?
yeah. Sorry, I opened up the other app, and now there's some kind of audio conflict. Sorry,
Oh,
1 second.
yeah.
I think it's probably best if I just close the other one. Okay.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
So what have you been working on?
What have I been working on? Goodness. Well, I actually just was on vacation, so nothing.
Nice.
I apologize if I've been a little late in responding to people. But yeah, so a couple months ago, I rewrote Iron Router, so that was a big project, and there's still a few things left to do there, and a little bit of cleanup. But yeah, I've been working on that, and then working on the next version of Evented Mind as well. So, and then also trying to keep up with content and producing new classes. So quite a bit of stuff,
Nice.
with a little detour to take a break over the past week.
Yeah, to Italy, right?
I went to a bunch of places. Let's see, Amsterdam, Berlin, France, and Switzerland to Zurich.
Nice. That's awesome.
I wanted to meet up with people while we were there, but my fiance had other plans, and so we ended up just doing tourist stuff.
Nice. All right. So we'll dive into some questions here. Um, Let's see. We'll start with the top voted one here from David Sakura. Hope I'm saying that right.
Sure.
Should know that.
Hi, David.
So his question is reactive joins versus denormalizing data. I think that's really all the question was. So I don't know. Give us more, guys. Give us more. I guess he's maybe asking which do you prefer?
Hmm. I think I'll give the crappy answer first, which is it depends on your app. I've gone both ways, and I think it depends on. Well, let me answer the question this way. So we started off with Evented Mind doing normalization and then just using joins, and that ended up being quite complex. And so we decided that for our app at least, we basically have two types of content: class content and feed content. And it was easier just to put that all in one Mongo collection and forget about joins altogether. So it depends on your app. I think, though, that when it comes to publish functions and what's the best way to kind of organize data, I found that it is a bit easier to just subscribe to one thing and then just have everything published out that's needed for that one thing. So, for example, if you subscribe to a class item when you're watching a video for a particular class, we publish out everything that's needed for that particular page from one publish function. But it's more of an organizing principle. It's just easier to reason about what the system is doing. In terms of joins, I mean, I think that there needs to be some better primitives built into Meteor Core around joins to make this whole thing easier, and maybe that has something to do with publishing out cross-join tables or collections in combination with some better UI support for it. It's still kind of a janky part of the system. So I would say probably for now the best bet is to just do what's simpler, not to over-architect, in the beginning. I think that's a mistake that we've made. And now we've gone back to trying to avoid joins if we can.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're trying to avoid them, like what were you using a package before, or what were you doing for that?
I'm notoriously bad for using packages. Tom has scolded me a few times. No, I actually have my own join package that isn't open source yet because I didn't have time to clean it up. But that's how I do the publishing part. So it's quite complex actually to do it and to do it performance effectively. And then on the client side, I think I already have a video out on how to do that. But the hard part is the publishing part. And then on the client, it's just a matter of tying two data sources together in the view.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. Like, it's a difficult thing, right? And then you kind of have to weigh the what's how much time is it worth? Like, do you really need the reactive join? Because I think in a lot of use cases, like there's probably going to be some weird edge bugs that might affect what data is going to show up on screen. But you have to decide if it's worth like going down that rabbit hole of getting all the data there, right? So.
Yeah, it can get unruly pretty quickly. Yeah, we used to have we used to need a reactive join on the UI because for instance, if you had like a class content item and then the actual videos and the duration and all that stuff was in the items collection, and then we have a table that shows all the different things, and so we would actually need to join the two records and then have it reactive. Otherwise, the UI wouldn't update. But I think another question to answer here is you don't need everything to be reactive. So I think your point is good. Like, if the data is, how often do I publish a new class? I guess not often enough, according to the audience, but I try. But it's not every minute. It's certainly not every second. So things like, should the feed page be reactive? Probably not. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it'd be easy enough just to make it an RPC call and load it all at once. And actually, that's what we do in the next version. So depends on the app.
Did you just say you're not going to publish the data? You're going to make an RPC call and get the data?
Yeah, actually, for the for pages where we don't need real time. So specifically on the feed, for example, I mean, it would be one thing if we were publishing feed items every second, but we're not. So they come out. It's like a blog. So it's a lot more performant to make one RPC call, get all the data at once and process it all at once, put it all into the DOM in one go. So it's much faster. For this use case.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so we'll call that done.
Okay.
All right, so the next highest one is at the September Dev Shop, Chris previewed Iron Router, Iron Controllers, etc. This introduces alternate ways to organize apps and access variables. What was/has been Meteor Development's group reaction to this? Give us all your dirty laundry, Chris.
I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for them. I mean, the reaction has been like, okay. I don't know if there's been kind of a formal response. I think probably I don't know quite how to answer the question, so I'll just kind of wrap a little, I guess. I think there's been kind of two development paths. There's core. And then there's the things that, at least for me, I've needed in order to use Meteor as an application framework. And without those things, I couldn't use it. So things like the router. But then the router, we soon realized became, it really was multiple packages tied up into one, and it made it very hard to reason about it, and it made it hard to bring on collaborators. So even Tom. Who works on the project and understands it was having difficulty with it. So I think it made more sense to break it out into kind of the individual piece parts, and then also to give people an opportunity to kind of plug in different things if they wanted to. Although realistically, it's really just about being able to reason about it ourselves. So I think it's increasingly becoming clear that it's particularly with Iron Router, it's sort of a core package, and so that's evidenced by the fact that I work very closely with the core team when we do releases, so that we release at about the same time. Meteor has multiple examples built in Iron Router. Their homepage is built in Iron Router. So it's over time. I think it's becoming clear that we probably need to come up with a way to work more closely together on it, even more than we do now. So
You mean they should take it over?
I don't know about that. I mean, I would certainly be okay with that, but I think that my goal is to make sure that it does what we need it to do for our applications. And if all along, I think it's really been more an issue of resource constraints for Meteor. But if they have the bandwidth to be able to take it on, with all the lessons and things that we've learned from doing it over the past 2 years, that would be pretty great. So, but I don't know if that will happen. I don't. We're kind of figuring this out as we go, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely one of those things that, like, it was a grassroots effort, right? Like, when you go to Atmosphere, it's the number 3 most used package. I guess it just says most used. I guess that's like all time.
What's the number 1?
Accounts, password, and less. So they're like core add-on packages from Meteor itself. So.
This is not right, Josh. This was because they had to wipe out all the metrics because they made a mistake.
I know, right? They cheated.
Could be number 1, man.
Yeah. Well, so I think if we sorted by stars, you'd probably be number 1.
I'm just teasing.
It's funny. But yeah, no. I mean, I totally agree. Like, I think it's good to see, like, they use Iron Router as well. So I mean, I would assume that their reaction to making Iron Router better is always going to be a positive thing. For me, like, I do sort of struggle with, I also teach a class, like an 8-hour online live type streaming class, and one of the things that I often get questions about is, well, I don't understand what's the difference between setting the data context in Iron Router for your template versus, like, setting some helpers that also get the data for you. And it's like, you end up with, like, these dual ways to handle something. And I notice, like, that happens often. It's not just because of Iron Router. There's other things that kind of you get like 2 or 3 ways to handle something from Meteor.
Yeah, it can be confusing. I think what's happening, the reality of it is that the patterns aren't established yet. And we don't have all the answers. I mean, in that specific case, there really isn't that much difference, if any, between those 2 methods. And so, as you pointed out, what's the best way? I don't really know. One of the things that kind of, the other thing is, if you're coming from a different framework where there's a model layer, people are used to putting all their stuff into a model, and you have business logic there, and we don't really have that. And so, it probably in a more traditional sense, most of the stuff goes in the data context, but we're still kind of figuring it out. Other questions are like, how much should reactivity work its way up into the application layer? It's a little unclear. I mean, right now it's way up in there because if you know from using Iron Router, functions rerun, and sometimes that creates some complexity in terms of reasoning about what's happening, and that's just I think we'll figure those things out over time. A lot of these ideas are relatively new, and so we're kind of like, well, let's try this and see what happens. And then we build an app or something with it and realize, well, maybe this was not quite as we intended, and we kind of keep iterating on it that way.
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing here, and this is usually what I tell my students too, is Iron Router is really kind of like the C in the MVC stack. So Meteor gave us, the models through collections, and they give us the views through the templating system. But they, like helpers and event maps, just kind of like they feel a little bolted on to controller, but not really. And so, to me, like the ability to create a hierarchy of controllers and share code and that kind of stuff, like, that becomes really interesting with Iron Router, and that's usually why I set things in the data context, because I mean it's a smart place to go look for data being set, and to me, like, you should set data using a controller. So usually what I say. All right, we'll call that one done. So Micah said how to create Cucumber server-side tests. Have you done testing?
Like in my life? Or
No, I mean like in Meteor, like with Velocity and Cucumber. I don't even know how to answer this because Cucumber, like it's just being revived now. So my guess is like Sam is one of the only guys that's tested with Cucumber right now.
yeah, I've only dabbled with Cucumber in other frameworks, not with Meteor.
Yeah.
I have not played with Velocity yet, admittedly. It's on my list of things to investigate.
All right. So then I will just jump in here and say, I promise next month's going to be awesome. I'm going to have Sam on and we'll discuss this question. So how about that? Hopefully.
Sounds good. I'll punt.
Um. All right, so I'm just going to take this other one. When is the next update on the testing Meteor book? So, Micah, you should have gotten an email yesterday from me saying that the book is officially being transitioned over. Sam and I are sort of combining efforts. I'm going to be doing technical review and kind of helping him out behind the scenes, but it's going to be his book going forward, the Meteor testing manual. So. You can go to differential.com/blog. You can see a post there. You can go to joshowens.me. You can find my blog post on the subject as well. And then you should have gotten an email from my MailChimp mailing list that kind of outlined the next steps. If you didn't get that, feel free to hit me up on Twitter or email or whatever. We can take care of that. All right. This one's interesting, and you would be a good one to answer this. So this question is, what are your views on how do we ensure high quality and maintained packages in our community? And I would say, like, you maintaining like one of the most used packages, I would be interested to hear your answer.
Okay, let me internalize this question. So it's how do we maintain high quality packages?
Yes, in our community, yes. How do we ensure high quality and maintained packages? I guess it's kind of a two-parter. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean I think part of it is it's how do we think about systems, and as the community starts off sort of relatively small, like 2 years ago, and now it's growing quite a bit. But you start off with kind of more monolithic systems like mini pages, and then Iron Router just had sort of it was like more like the crisp package that just had everything that I kind of needed. And then the next phase of that is let's start breaking out things into their respective concerns, and then choosing the best part for the job. And I think one of the things I've noticed that's interesting to me about the Node.js community and about NPM is that it seems like they've just really they break down everything into lots and lots and lots of packages that kind of do what they're supposed to do. Now the challenge with that, I guess, is you have a maintenance kind of potential burden. For example, right now there's 8 or 9, actually maybe even more now, iron packages, and so. If I look at my directory, I think I have a whole, so quite a few iron packages, and it's basically just me and maybe 1 or 2 other people. And so, is it better to have it in all these different packages? I'm not sure, but I think that the over time, the idea would be that people would contribute to a specific part. So let me be more concrete. So for example, in Iron URL, there's the regular expression compiler for taking a URL and turning it into a function, right? Does that really belong in this specific package? Probably not. It probably belongs in a package that just does that. And then a person can reason about that. They can update it. They can change it. So I think it's some combination of like the community growing and then people taking interest in particular parts of more monolithic packages. Like if you look at Iron Router, you might email me and say, hey Chris, I think we could probably pull this out, and I could do a pretty good job at maintaining this, and I'd be interested in those kinds of proposals. I think it also, I'll stop rambling. I have one key message here. I think it is that the community needs to take an interest in learning how things work. Mm-hmm. So I think that one of the pitfalls of communities is that you can get into this mindset of I just take, I just figure out what I need for the exact thing that I need to do at this very second in life, and just do that. But what you should be doing is thinking that I could write all this stuff myself if I wanted to, and what I'm doing is saving time. And of course, there's a balance of that based on your real life responsibilities. But I think that the community will be overall a lot stronger if they have opinions on things and they think about how it actually works and how we can make it better. So overall, I'd like to see in our community more dialogue, not just about feature requests, but how we might go about implementing new things. So, all right, I'll stop. But
well, so my response to Morton would actually be a little different. So I think like that's all great stuff, right? Like that's definitely like package management, and a lot of that stuff to me like happens in GitHub or happens in conversations on GitHub, and like figuring out how to manage all that stuff like that. That's definitely essential. Like I see, you know, I'm getting ready to officially of maintaining that, and you know that led to people creating a better maintained package in accounts templates. So
yeah.
I mean that stuff definitely matters in my opinion. But the other thing too is we're starting to get little bits of tools coming from Percolate on Atmosphere, right? Like now we have stars, and so we can see like we're getting this feedback mechanism to understand that there's 139 people that liked Iron Router enough to actually log in and click the little star guy. So I mean that's a signal as well, and I think that the more we can polish up some of the algorithms on Atmosphere, I think the easier it's going to become to expose high quality packages perhaps. And
yeah, I mean this is true, but I think that also none of us is in the business of maintaining packages, and what I mean by that is it's a volunteer activity, and I think that that's pretty much always going to be the case. I don't see anything in the short term to allow us to kind of to really monetize packages, nor do I think that that's really the right thing to do. But what that means is that we need use cases to build stuff, and if we don't have them, so with Iron Router, I think that's increasingly becoming. I'm having to become more disciplined because there's so many people, so many issues. That if you need something really, really critically, if it's not a bug, or something, you need to do it. So basically, like the rule of thumb is, if it doesn't work in our particular use case, I'm not gonna just do it just for the fun of it anymore. And the reason is I just can't. I don't have the time. But that doesn't mean that we won't accept pull requests. But generally, the rule of thumb for pull requests is you need to have like a burning use case. If it's just like, I think it would be cool if we did this and this and this, we just sort of ignore it. So it's becoming a little bit draconian, I guess, in that because it's a volunteer activity, it has to be that we're using it in our actual applications, in our actual businesses, and that's kind of what drives feature development.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you see it happen with every open source project, right? I mean, like I look back at DHH and Rails, and the old joke was, PDI, right? Like, please do investigate. Like, that's totally fine. We'll allow you to learn and figure that out for us and share it with the rest of us, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yeah. Right. No, I think in one sense you could say, well, it's mean, it's not right, but it just because I had this like almost kind of nervous breakdown like 6 months ago because or maybe it was like last year, I can't remember, but it got to the point where I was like, oh, what have I done? Like I've created a monster. And I don't know how to deal with it. And you know how it is yourself because you get these emails and it's just email after email after email after email, and you have to come up with some kind of process for dealing with it. And then like the standard thing to do is to just be like, I'm just not going to deal with it, and I'm going to go to bed and not come out. Which is
really bad, right? Like in the long run, that's a really bad response.
yeah, definitely, and it's not healthy. So I think there's an answer, but I think the answer is like you just have to you have to make sure that you're doing quality stuff, but that you're brutally focused on real use cases. That you're not in the volunteer package management business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean that was tough too. Like when I was at Differential, this is where my head was at. This is why we had 10 separate packages that were doing things that we knew would make building an app easier. Is because I knew that I could leverage each client to kind of shoulder that support cost, right? And
Yep.
then, they get all the gain from all the previous package work when they come in and we pop it in and get things working for them really fast. But then on the flip side, if we find something broken while we're working on that app, we would spend the time and build that client even though it was open source work. So,
Yeah.
I think philosophically maybe they're a little different there now, but I can't speak too much to that for them. But we'll call that done. Let's see. I'm going to cherry pick, even though we got one at the top. It feels like it might be an easy one to answer. Are nested routes a la ember.js on the roadmap for Iron Router? So this is Nick Wintage. I know I can say his name. He told me it was right. So nested routes.
Yeah, nested routes. So they should be in Iron Router, so we should be able to support nested routes. The problem is that I don't have a need for it right at the minute. So I started down the path of creating the plumbing to be able to do that, and then so that plumbing exists, like the Iron middleware stack and all that supports nesting of stacks, and so that the infrastructure is there, but we have to kind of develop the higher level APIs for it. I don't have a roadmap, so I don't know how to answer the roadmap question. One of the, I guess, faults of this kind of being out of core is that I don't have a roadmap or a snapshot of versions or even professional release management. So we do the best that we can with the features that we need for a given event-in-mind release. So if a community member wants to take that on or to look at how to implement it, I'd definitely be interested in helping.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you really need is like Robert Dikert. I never know how to say his last name, but he's been a godsend to the Velocity group because he gets us together, every week, and we just kind of spend about an hour discussing, all the package maintainers are on there discussing what they're having trouble with and what we need to do next, and he's kind of helped put together a roadmap as well. And now he works for a Meteor group, but
yeah,
kind of interesting. So if someone wants to step up and help in that regard as well, I'm sure you're open to that, right?
In which regard?
In helping organize like a roadmap and maybe doing like a monthly hangout where people can talk and you can kind of formulate how you want to move forward.
Yeah, it's an idea.
Yeah.
I think probably after the dust settles a little bit with version 1, it's time to coordinate with Meteor a little bit on what they're going to do, what I'm going to do, and that really hasn't happened yet. So probably sometime before the holidays.
Yeah, that's always a tough thing. Like that was probably the toughest piece with 09 coming out with Velocity, was trying to coordinate with MDG and be ready for those changes when they came. So.
Yep.
All right, we will call that one done. I'll take a question from the Google Hangout itself, because I want to know the answer to this too. I actually opened a ticket on server-side rendering package that Aeronota made, and I know the two of you talked quite a bit after I opened it.
Oh, there's a Q&A tab here, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Bob.
Yeah, so Bob Monsauer, I hope I said that right, said, I'd love to hear Chris's thoughts on server-side rendering and the needs to support SEO. So we'll select that.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be in core. It's just such a critical use case, and I think that it's not just a question of SEO. I think that's a mistake. It's a question of performance and of SEO, and I think it's also a question of application architecture. So I think that the answer is, the high-level answer is that the core should really blur the distinction between server-side and client-side, and we shouldn't really be thinking about that anymore.
Right.
I think that right now that we spend too much time thinking about client server, and it's overly complex, and it makes it hard to reason about the application. Um, Views should just work on the server. They should. And I think that if you've looked at rendering um, server-side components with React, for example, or something, and you see how fast that is, it's because you don't have to wait that extra couple hundred milliseconds for the JavaScript runtime to kind of spool up and to render things. So anyway, I'm getting off topic. So I'd like to hear Chris's thoughts on server-side rendering and the needs to support SEO. Arnold's work was pretty cool. I think he's doing a little bit of hacky stuff there with the core framework to get access to the templates. But this is something that I think MDG has to take pretty seriously. I think that server-side rendering needs to be a core piece of functionality.
Yeah.
So that's my viewpoint.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I mean the problem is that whether it's for SEO or for Open Graph or Twitter's metadata, whatever, like you're left with Spiderable and Phantom.js, and that is a seriously suboptimal solution because
it's a mess.
Yeah, it's totally a mess, because you don't know, like, if Googlebot comes along or Facebookbot comes along and like scrapes your page, and you have no idea, did it actually serve the content or not? Like, you have to grep through the logs to see that it crashed and didn't serve the content. And then if it did serve the content, with regard to SEO, if it's slow, and it will be because you're putting extra layers in there, you're essentially rendering the site twice. You end up getting penalized from Google, or in the case of Facebook, you end up with, they only wait like so many milliseconds before they just decide, like, screw it, we can't get metadata about this.
Oh, really?
Link, so we're just not going to show it.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to reason about. It gives you the willies because you're not sure, did this actually work or did it throw an error? If you forgot to install it properly, or you get these sort of cryptic error messages, and then if you forget to publish the ready message, or something like that, all of a sudden the page just never is ready, and now you need to. So yeah, there's a lot of issues there. Did I ever tell you the story about the wild goose chase with Phantom about a year ago?
No.
I think at one of the MVG meetings. Basically, this is how dumb I am. But this took a couple hours of, in our Mixpanel metrics, I was noticing this spike in traffic, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I dug into it, and I realized that all this traffic was coming from a particular place, and specifically it was San Jose. And I thought, somebody is doing something really strange here. And then, so I'm going on this wild goose chase and figuring out that this is not just like, this is like thousands of requests, like every day. And so I'm thinking, is this some kind of an attack? What the heck's going on? And then I look at the IP address and I go, what the hell? This is my IP address. What's going on? And then I dig into it and I realize, wait a second, the user agent is Phantom.js. Then I realized that, wait, this is Phantom.js. And then it took like another 45 minutes of thinking about it to be like, oh, wait a second, it's Google. Google is hitting my site, and it's causing Phantom.js to spool up. And then that's hitting, and then, so we ended up having to do this, create this white layer blacklist for Mixpanel to be like, don't record the Phantom.js metrics because it's skewing our metrics.
Yeah.
So yeah, things like that, are just like.
That's funny. I have so many stories like that, but the one I told recently was around actually Spiderable and Googlebot, and the fact that when you're on DigitalOcean, they don't have, by default, they don't give you a swap partition. And so on a 512 meg machine, this is the other problem with Spiderable, it just forks, I think it just calls exec on Phantom.js and just kind of like forks another process and lets it run. The problem is, if you get hit by like 10 Googlebot requests all at once, all of a sudden you're firing up 10 Phantom.js instances and trying to serve all those up.
Yeah, you run out of memory.
Yeah, you totally run out of memory. And so Crater was on there, and like just one weekend, all of a sudden it just started like hard locking and not responding. and it turned out that it was just Google coming along and wanting data, but it totally killed the site.
Yeah.
Things to be concerned about for sure.
Yeah.
I had another one. It was similar to yours. We were doing testing. It was a Rails app, and we got into doing CI work, and we didn't realize it. Somehow the CI was running in production mode, which meant like the analytics were actually kicking in and being included. And as a part of that, my dog's jumping on the window. That's funny. It's really high up there. So as a part of that, like we had goal conversions, and we're like, oh my God, we're seeing so many people sign up, and they're all from Germany, and this is weird. Like, this is exciting. And then we go and we look, and it's like we don't have any users, and we're like, well, they all signed up. Where are the users? And then it turned out it was all the automated testing was running in the CI, and it was looking like in our analytics like there was a bunch of people signing up. So
yeah,
kind of funny.
The hardest problems in computer science, chasing your own tail.
Yeah, analytics. All right, so we'll take the next one here from Crowdcast. What is the process for getting a JS GitHub project into Meteor as a package? For example, I would like to make use of Mozilla's metrics graphics.
Sorry, what's a JS GitHub package? What is that?
I don't know. Let me
just
click
like a JavaScript package, another JavaScript package?
Yeah, I think it's like maybe another JavaScript library. Maybe he's asking from the looks of it, this is just a JavaScript library. So to me, this is like a Moment or anything else. Like you're really just wrapping the package up. You're wrapping the library up and then exposing it as a package.
Is that what? So read the question again. I got confused.
Sure. What is the process for getting a JS GitHub package or GitHub project into Meteor as a package? For example, I'd like to make use of Mozilla metrics graphics, and he gave a link. So I'm looking at the link here, and it's just a library. There's
a couple of different ways to think about it. I think in the simplest case, the easiest thing to do is just to include the JavaScript file in your Meteor app. So you can create a file called my app or mylib.js and copy and paste in whatever you want, and then it will automatically be included or bundled into the client app's JavaScript file to build.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in the simplest cases, you just do that. You can even include, I think you can include script tags in the head section, although I haven't done that in a while. So I think that works as well. Although you need to be careful about ordering of things. But in any case, another thing you could do is if you have the need to order files, so there's like, it's not one thing depends on another thing, that's usually when I start to think about just putting it in a package.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, you just use the regular Meteor packaging system. You can either get submodule the original library, or you can just cut and paste it in, giving proper attribution and all that, and then just wrap it into the Meteor package system that way. So using the regular.
There's a number of packages that work that way, right? Like if you look at Bootstrap 3, or you look at I mentioned Moment before. There's a ton of them they're just basically the library's been exported into a package. Some people even do like submodules. You could just submodule it in, so it makes it easier to update later.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing too, and I think the right answer to this is, where's our Bower integration? That would be interesting to me. And I know someone's done it as a package, but I'd love to see. I mean, we've got NPM support now, and we've got Cordova support. Like, let's just get Bower in there.
Yeah. Yep.
Get on it, MGG. We set it on here, so now it should be a reality. Just kidding. All right. Next up. Hi. I think this is directed at you. They didn't say. This is Mohammed Ali Khan. Hopefully I said your name right. Will any of your training courses or blog posts focus on Mongo in respect to Meteor? Is it even needed, or would you rather point to other sources?
Hi, Mohammed. Good question. So I think you're asking, do we want to do any kind of Mongo-specific classes? Absolutely, yeah. Definitely, we have so I have a whole kind of list of class ideas that I'd like to do and one on Mongo is definitely in there. And I think there's multiple aspects of Mongo that we can cover. Deployment, for example, setting up replica sets and failover, and so there's sort of the administration side of it, but then also just how do you use Mongo and in the simple and more advanced use cases. So yeah, super excited about doing that kind of stuff. I think that kind of to hijack this question into another answer. What I'm increasingly becoming more interested in with Evented Mind is focusing it on concepts. And so it's not to say that I want to make it useless. It's that I want to help level up our thinking about how we do engineering, about how we build things, the thinking process behind how does Blaze work, versus how does React work. And I think as engineers we should be professionals and understand those things. And so I think for the core classes, if we did something on Mongo, it would be sort of understanding not just sort of a tutorial for how it works, but why does it work this way? What are the design philosophies? And then I'd like to partner or work with other people to kind of improve some of our more tutorial aspects of Evented Mind. So that's kind of philosophically where my mind is at. And so with Meteor, for example, I'd like to spend a little bit more time talking about performance of published functions and what does the actual runtime look like, and how could we make mistakes as users or understand better about the sequencing of things in published functions, for example. So that's kind of, I think, where Evented Minds coursework will kind of move towards. And then the more things like project setup and configuration and that kind of things we'll do in the feed, or bring on guests, posters, or that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where my mind is at.
Yeah. So I would say, Mohammed, like if you really have burning questions, like sign up for, if you're not already on it, sign up for the Meteor Club mailing list, and when you get that first email, just reply and ask me your questions. Like I've done a number of blog posts. I've talked about like performance in regards to indexing. I think that's important, and a lot of people forget that. I found, I've looked at a couple major production apps that have had, zero indexing outside of on the users table, which Meteor Group does for you. So, definitely go check out my blog. I've got another one where I talk about scaling Meteor as well, and I touch a little bit on why you need oplog and that kind of stuff, and why it's important. And I dive a little bit into that. So I would definitely say, like, if you have those questions, just like get them out there more specifically, and people will help answer them. And if not, like, I still find the Mongo database, their docs online are really, really good. Like, they're dense, but they're good. So, like, you should be able to find an answer to almost anything in there. All right.
Yeah, I found administering Mongo and all that is actually pretty straightforward, and the tutorials and stuff on their site is pretty good. But nonetheless, I think we'll end up doing a course on it sometime in the new year.
Yeah. I am also trying to think through a blog post specifically for the MongoDB blog that will center around like building a Meteor app with Mongo. So maybe that would be helpful as well.
Oh, and I'm speaking at the MongoDB conference, so that's you can watch that. Although I'm just starting to get my head wrapped around the schedule but I think it's December 3rd. So if you're in the area and you want to come to the MongoDB conference, come there and we can talk MongoDB.
Yeah, nice. Awesome.
All right.
So I think we touched on this a little bit, but someone just asked, do you guys think Atmosphere is mature enough to grant enough visibility to valuable packages? So I'll maybe jump in here first, because we did cover this a little bit already. I think that it's getting mature enough to help expose this stuff. I think, to me, the biggest problem is we still don't, like, we get little bits and pieces here from Tom and the gang on how things are working, but I think it would be awesome to have that be completely transparent if it was open sourced, and, I'm sure it would be a headache to manage if he open sourced it, but even just seeing the code might be of interest and help drive that visibility even more. But yes, I think it's now we're definitely getting to the point where it's becoming more and more, it's becoming better at exposing valuable packages.
I don't know how to answer this question. I don't spend that much time on Atmosphere, honestly. I'm probably not the right guy to talk about it.
Okay.
I spend probably. Tom is always giving me a hard time because we chat periodically, and then we'll be looking at doing code reviews or something like that for Iron Router, and then he'll see the evented mind source and all the local packages that I have, and then he yells, "Why aren't those on Atmosphere?" And so I probably need to get better at that.
Whoops. Thanks, Apple.
Although, I just started. I brought in a new package. What did I use? The Collection 2.
Oh, okay.
I started using that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. My preferred is collection hooks and collection helpers is my way to handle a lot of that stuff now.
So.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. We'll get Tom Coleman on here. How about that? How about maybe in January?
You got to match up the time zones, though.
Yeah, we did it before. Sasha was on here for the first one.
Yeah, Sasha's a bit easier, but no, I guess it's about the same time zone, isn't it?
Yeah, they're pretty close there.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about time zones. I spent the last 2 days with time zones. I want to punch people for time zones.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess we'll take these in order. So at the moment, feature requests and ideas tend to fade on Meteor Core. Any thoughts on how MDG and the community should coordinate and communicate? So I'll say, from my perspective, I think this is just going to be a hard thing for a while. Like, they're busy. I'm guessing right now they're trying to close another round of funding. I know that they, only have so much cash in the bank. Once you build a big team, like, that only stretches so far for so long. And I know that they're working hard on Galaxy, and so that's going to be some of their core needs and core focuses. And so, I know they're doing the best they can, and I don't know. Like, I mean, you were just talking about it, Chris. Like, you need to coordinate better with them, and you probably have the highest level of coordination of any kind of package author, right?
Probably. Maybe Velocity has some pretty good coordination too. I don't know.
Yeah,
a separate project though.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Robert is on our team still and still attends the meeting, so maybe that helps a little bit now that he's part of Meteor. But
yeah, I think the challenge that MDG has is that there needs to be higher. Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there was a core set of things that had to be built, and that's certainly true. But as you move forward, in order for an application framework to be useful to application developers, you have to be involved in the application development process. Or you need to be building an application yourself, or you need to be working and communicating with people who are. And I don't think that's a community problem in the sense that of meetups and all that kind of stuff. I think it's an engineering communication issue where there needs to be some real engineering discourse between the core team and people who are building stuff. The challenge is I don't know how to do that in a time-effective way. I have some ideas. I mean, I think that it could be formalized, but I think that the philosophy behind it needs to be that there are some things that you would think about as a systems engineer that are not sufficient to account for all the things that you think about as an application developer. And so there has to be more thinking about the application side of things. And so maybe it takes the form of some kind of, I don't know, I'd have to give it some thought. I mean, I think it's a legitimate challenge. It's not like someone's just not doing a good job. I mean, it's hard because there's so many users. How do you prioritize the information? But the key here is that it's not about feature requests. It's about understanding how the best way that we can think about building applications. And so that requires more communication with the core team somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think GitHub is the right way to do it. And I don't think the mailing list is the right way to do it. I think that those are kind of low bandwidth solutions to something that requires a high bandwidth channel. So we have to be probably almost, if not in person, in some kind of Google Hangout or something where we're talking through these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that would actually be kind of interesting to like get some top package maintainers into a hangout with some MDG folks. I could see that being
I mean,
interesting.
there's philosophical questions. Like, not everything is a systems engineering problem that has been completely determined, where there's a deterministic, we do this, and then like Tom and I talk a lot about, well, how much should depths be used in application level architecture? And it has pros and cons, and the answer isn't concrete. Like, we need to think about it. So it'd be better if we had more brains thinking about that, rather than just us. And it would be even better if the core team was thinking about it with us.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, every decision, there are trade-offs. So you just have to decide what trade-offs you're okay with. And I think the problem you're alluding to is the fact that you feel like you're deciding these trade-offs for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
it'd be better if more people talked about it. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Morton, I wish I had a better answer. Like, MDG, like, if they had more people, this wouldn't solve the problem either.
Who asked the question?
Morton Henriksen.
Oh yeah, hey Morton, how's it going?
Yeah, he's got a lot of good packages.
Yeah, that's.
I want to know. Are you working at all with Morton on? I'm going to interject my own question on GroundDB and like Iron Router, kind of Meteor subscribe stuff, or is he just doing that on his own?
I think he's doing it on his own. Although I'm happy to work with Morton. I'm still kind of figuring out how to do all this stuff. I can tell you if I see a comment from Morton, I'll pay attention very quickly. So anytime you want to get better integration or work on something, Morton, just shoot me an email or
yeah. So I was given a class and we threw GroundDB into the app and tried to get it working with Cordova, and it sort of worked, but then the problem was really with the subscriptions being in the wait on section of Iron Router. Like, it wasn't working correctly there. It was throwing some errors. So
people can use the subscriptions option, by the way. I've been answering a lot of these questions recently. There's a new option called subscriptions. So just put your subscriptions in there.
What?
Yeah.
Docs. All right, I gotta go read this now.
Yeah, it's in the docs actually.
Yeah, I'll have to look that over.
Yeah.
All right, so this may be our last one. I don't know. We may have time for one more after it, but we don't have any more, so we'll do this one. This is funny that you're on here and they're asking this. What are the server hardware requirements for a typical Meteor app? Think telescope with, e.g., 10,000 connected clients simultaneously to have the app running without glitches. Yeah, I don't know. That's way specific.
Yeah, it depends on. I think that the answer, the problem with this is that what we need is some benchmarking with some different types of data scenarios. In a normal web application, I could answer that pretty straightforwardly, because it's a question of how many HTTP requests can you handle per unit of time, so per second. For example, a typical kind of setup would be something like 3,000 requests per second with Nginx and so probably a medium instance of Amazon, and one or two instances of a regular web server, kind of a regular web framework running. But with Meteor, that's not really what you're measuring, right? You're measuring not just the initial HTTP request, but how much data can kind of how much data can be processed per unit of time. And so that's a function of publish functions. It's a function of connected clients. So there's multiple variables. So what does it mean to, what would be required to handle 10,000 connected clients? Well, it depends. If you have a publish function that's doing something really crazy, it might be you need something humongous. If you're evented mind, it probably doesn't. It requires that you don't need that much.
Right.
If you just have one RPC method call.
Yeah. The other interesting thing here too is like, you alluded to the fact that we don't know what their data set looks like, so we don't know like what that scaling would look like, because 10,000 people connected. If you have a lot of data you're pushing down through a publication, you're actually going to have quite large merge boxes that end up on your servers as well. So like those are going to suck up memory. And then on the flip side, if you're pushing a lot of write data into your MongoDB and you're using oplog, then you're probably going to start spiking your CPU as well. So, I mean, it really just depends on what your data looks like. I'll tell you, like, for me, Telescope, I'm doing, 50 to 100 people at any given time on Crater, and we're hosting it on DigitalOcean. We're on the 1 gig slice, so just like $10 a month. And the database is on compose.io. So I think I'm spending like $28 a month to run Crater, and it's able to handle all the traffic I get just fine.
Yeah, what we do is I have CloudWatch on Amazon, and I keep tabs on the average CPU for the web servers, and right now we're running 2. Sometimes I'll spawn up 3. But frankly, I mean, in most cases it could just run on 1. It's just a matter of redundancy, because we have paying customers and so on. I don't want to have any downtime. Mm-hmm. But with that said, it's never actually gone down, other than it was going down quite often a year ago, but that wasn't a Meteor problem. It was a date library issue. So, yeah, I think that CPU is the issue. So you want to keep an eye on that, and probably the thing to do if you're worried about it is to write some simulators. So if you're going to build a really big application, just start pegging your publish functions with simulation code. So there's multiple DVP clients that are out there that you can use to do this kind of thing, and then you'll kind of get a sense of it, and then sample the CPU for 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, and I would say like install Kadira as well, and just kind of watch as you're running those tests. Another interesting one I just saw today, someone tweeted to me. It's called bargeapp.com, I think, and it'll take Phantom.js or I think it'll take Cucumber.js tests and basically turn that into performance load testing, like using scripts you already wrote. So that's kind of interesting as well.
Yep.
So. All right, we'll call that one done. That was all the questions, so I will end with a question of my own. I have a ticket, actually, that I let sit for a while.
That's what this whole call was about, to get your ticket.
Really, yeah, really. I need you to help me with some code, Chris. No, the ticket was about I need like an on-exit kind of hook in Iron Router, and I'd be happy to code it up, and I think my client is happy to pay me to code it up. But I wasn't sure like the best place to jump in and figure out how to build my own hook. Are there good docs for that, or like where should I be looking for that, I guess?
Well, I think the thing to do if you wanted to engage in a discussion, I mean, if it's something you can do outside the Iron Router package yourself, then just do it. But if it's something that needs to be in the Iron Router package, what I would do is open an issue, prefix
I think
it
there's an issue I may have commented on and said that you had commented this will probably happen after 1.0, and I said I'd be happy to help here, and I think that was like the last either of us maybe touched on it.
So the first thing is I'd have to understand what it is that what we're trying to accomplish, and so normally I'd try to mark that as like discussion or something. We just keep going with it. If we already had that and I'm just behind on the queue,
we probably haven't had the discussion. So for me, like they want to pop a modal before you leave a page. So when you click a link.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and you want to be able to cancel the route change or something like that. Right.
Exactly.
So you would start to what you would do is submit a pull request, but you wouldn't submit it as kind of a final thing. Like I think what you would do is you just say, okay, this is like a discussion pull request, and now let's. But before you do that, you'd want to kind of make sure that at least Tom is bought into it, and that I understand kind of the implementation approach, and that it's very, very clear like what the use case is. Whether what we don't want to do is to create unnecessary code paths that complicate the system unnecessarily. So can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah, actually, I think we're done. So I'll just. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, just do that, and then I think once we kind of agree on it, you'd submit a pull request, and then we would go a couple rounds to make it really good. The key thing to do with pull requests is to make sure that it's as confined as possible. So if you create a ton of different like surface area, it's very hard to reason about what's happened, and most of the time we won't accept those because it's just too hard to know what kind of additional problems it's going to cause. So try to keep it small and focused.
All right. You go get the door and I'll wrap up.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Nice to talk to you, Josh. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys.